So in this position, it's white's turn to play. So pause this video and try to save this position from white. Okay, I hope you had a try. So firstly, white has two choices. Where to put this knight? Should he put this on f7 or to g6? Obviously, knight g6 is bad because if you play knight g6, then he'll play h3. You cannot occupy the h2 square because the knight is too far. So you have to somehow try to find a check and occupy the h1 square. Knight f4, h2, knight e2, king d3. But the white's king is too far, and occupying only the h1 square will, like, after some time the white's knight will get trapped. If I try to bring this king here, f3, knight h1, and the white's knight is trapped. So like white has no other choice also in this position. Like if he plays knight g6, h3, like if he doesn't play knight f4, then he will simply promote his pawn. So white has really no other choice but these are the four sequence of moves. So knight g6 doesn't work. So by elimination, the first move is obviously knight f7. Now if he'll put his pawn to h3, now there's only one way to stop this pawn from promotion, that is to somehow give a check and gain a tempo. Because white's knight needs three moves to do the h1 square, and the black's pawn will get promoted in just two moves. So we will somehow need to gain one tempo by giving a check. So first we will attack the pawn, which will force him to move this. Like for coming to e4, obviously we want to play knight d6 because this is not forcing him to move the pawn. So we'll play knight g5. He's forced to move the pawn, then we will get knight e4 check. Now notice the dominance of the knight. Where will black put his king? Like obviously at first sight it seems that he should either put it on d3 or at d4, but both have their cons. Like suppose he puts his king on d4, then I will put my knight on f2. Now he cannot play his king to e3 because of knight g4 check and the knight takes h2. There's a fork. He cannot play his king to d3 because my knight is on f2. He cannot play his king to e4 because my knight is on f2. He cannot play his king to e5 because there's a fork on g4. So where will he go? And if he goes anywhere else, then I will simply bring my king, because my king is sitting on c7. So he cannot play king d4. What if he plays king d3? If he plays king d3, then instead of f2, I will go to g3. Now he cannot play king e4 because my knight is on g3. He cannot play king e3 because of fork on f1. He cannot go to e2 because my knight is on g3. He cannot go to d2 because my knight will come on f1. So he cannot even go on d3. So there's only one square left. He has to go to c2. So the reason of coming to c2 is that obviously if I want to go to f2 now, because if I go to f2, then he will gain a tempo by coming to d2 and then to e2. So I will put my knight on g3. So the difference is that he has another route via d1, e1 and f2, which is not possible in other sequences. But here he moved his king from c3 to c2. Like it doesn't bring him any closer to his pawn. So I can bring my king. Like my king is not on a8, it's on c7, so it's not too far. His king is also sitting on c2. So after knight g3, he will play king d1. He cannot play king d2 because of knight f1. He will play king d1. King d1. Now I will bring my king to d6. King to e1. King to e5. King to f2, and then king to f4. So white's king was just on time. If it was on b7 or something like that, then it would have been lost for white. But the white king was just on time. So this is how white can save this position.